Hello and welcome to Get a Shift On. As you can see, a slightly different setup today. Massive thanks to a good friend of mine who's let us use his podcast studio, and who knows, it might be here in the future as well. Today, I am really pleased to welcome Dale Triffitt, who is from Groberri HR.
Hello.
Thanks and welcome on. Dale and I have known each other for quite a few years.
I can't think back how many years. It's a long time,
It is quite a while. And we've both kind of transitioned, done different careers along the line, and always had that parallel working. So it's a real pleasure to have him on the podcast to talk about his journey and how he has now started his own HR business. Dale, what do we need to know about you to know where you are today?
So today I am a HR and leadership business. So I concentrate on HR support for small businesses, looking at policies, documents. Then we do a retainer service where businesses can call up whenever they need to, when things go wrong, but also the proactive side of things, which that's the bit I really, really love, is the proactive side, and looking how can we attract great employees to the businesses when you've got them, how do you develop them, how do you retain them, and then ultimately, which people don't think about, when people leave, because people do leave businesses, what then happens and what's the effect of that can have. So that's that one side. The other side, which I'm really, really passionate about, is leadership training, but not the top end senior leadership training. For me, it's all about the lower end. What I mean by that is where you've got great people in the business, really, really good at their jobs, and then they get promoted and all of a sudden they're leading a team. They've never led a team before and no one has told them how to lead a team. So that's where I kind of come in and do workshops and one-to-one coaching on what's the difference between a leader and a manager. How do you have clear communication? How do you give feedback? How do you receive feedback? Because a lot of people don't know how to receive feedback. They can take it really, really personal. And then how to have those difficult conversations. That's kind of where I come into things.
Excellent. There's quite a lot to unpack there. HR, I think, is always a bit of a dark art. People don't like talking about it because it's so, often HR get called in, I guess, when people are being made redundant, being fired. So I guess there's that kind of negative side, but you're looking at more positive side. And the leadership piece is a really interesting part of that.
It is, and I think it goes hand in hand with HR. A few people have said to me out networking, they're two very different sides of the business. I don't think they are, because if you learn how to be a great leader, there's always HR aspects in there. And if you're able to kind of help people along with that, you're most likely going to prevent something major happening in the future, which is what HR should be about, is preventing and making sure it's a great workplace for everyone.
It's interesting because obviously I spend a lot of my time dealing with people who are leaving careers, but actually a big chunk of what I want to do and help people is actually retain people. And I think that's where, there's some good correlation in what we do. So I know it's reasonably early on in your business.
Yeah.
Tell me where you started, back when, that first job.
So my very first job, I was 11 years old, did a paper round. And the reason I went to do a paper round is didn't have the best upbringing as such, and we were poor. Poor to the sense when my dad was an alcoholic, and he would go out to the pub all the time. And me and my brother would, in the morning, come downstairs, see his wallet out with loads of coins, as well as shrapnel, and we would take £2 each. No more than that, because you would notice it otherwise. And we took that because in the evening, we had no idea whether we were eating tea or not. So that £2 was to go and buy a packet of ham, a pot noodle, and then we used to go to the bakery, which was down the road, and they put bin bags out at night. And what we found was a pig farmer came round and picked them up. They had a deal. But we opened the bin bags and found, there's cakes left over. So that was our tea. So I think at the time I needed a pair of trainers and didn't have the money for a pair of trainers. So I went out and got a paper round. I think it was £11 a week. I had one of the hardest areas, I would say, in painting with the hills. It was just insane. But that kind of taught me a little bit on work ethic. And then I moved to a greengrocer's up in Cherrybrook. It was, I can't remember what it's called now. It's called the Cherry Bowl. So I was 13 at the time, paying me £1.50 an hour. or for the whole day Saturday, £15. And the whole day was 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening. That was hard work. And I'd go outside where they had a display stand outside, make all the pyramids of apples and oranges and all that type of thing. And on the Saturday, I'd do the cleaning out the back. They had a pet food store, so they bought massive bags of pet food, and I'd have to weigh them into individual little bags, and real hard work. And I went there because I needed a new school bag, and my school bag broke at the time. My dad gave me a bright green PG Tips bag, and as you can imagine, it didn't last very long, and I was bullied for it. I think it lasted 2 days. And then after that, he gave me what looked like a World War II satchel. I just couldn't do it. So I had to go and get a job at 13 just to make sure I had basic stuff. So I've always been a grafter and always thought, I need to make something happen for myself. And that's kind of where that stuff came from.
And often you hear that people graft at a young age, lead on to entrepreneurship, when it's born out of a need to have something.
Yeah, definitely.
Hard day, 6 to 6, £15 an hour.
Yeah.
That's...
you look back and you're like, why? Why did I do that?
£15 a day even.
£15 a day, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was not good. Then at 15, I started a job at Sainsbury's. I think it's £3.25 an hour. And you look back and you're like, that's just crazy, absolutely crazy. So I was stacking the fresh food, so yogurts, milk, that type of thing. And I remember seeing the store manager running around, and I said to my mate there, God, I could never do that. Like, how did he know what to do on produce? How did he know what to do on grocery? How did he know? It took me 9 years, and I became that store manager. And my journey within that particular store, I'm so pleased that was, I look at that as my first proper job. And I always kind of would say to young people, starting in this supermarket is really, really good because you've got that social element. You're also working with people at different ages. So I think I was working with someone I thought at the time was ancient, like comes to retirement. I don't know now. Like, perceptions all change, don't they? But yeah, you get to work with lots of different people. And I started my way from shelf stacking. I went into the warehouse. I went on to beers, wines and spirits. I was a merchandiser there. So, when you get really frustrated when someone's changed the store around and it's not where you thought your product's not where, well, that was me.
It's all your fault.
Yeah. And then I ended up on the hot food counter as a supervisor. And when I kind of fast forward to now, when I'm saying about leadership, that was me back then. So I took the job as a supervisor, not knowing what a supervisor is, not knowing that I actually had to be in charge of some people. And that was a real big eye-opener for me. And then one day, the HR manager came to me and said, our store trainer, and the store trainer at the time kind of was like an assistant HR manager. What they did was all of the recruitment, pretty much, and then when new starters came in, did a new starter induction. And then after that, kind of looked after all the training for everyone else in the store. I'd never thought about it, never done it, didn't know anything about it. And the HR manager came to me with a folder and said, our store trainers walked out. Tomorrow, you've got 20 people to do an induction. Here is the folder. Now, back then, there wasn't PowerPoint presentations. It literally was, there was a folder and a script, and I had to read it. And I went up and I did the worst new starter induction I think anyone's ever seen. Came away and was like, thank God I don't need to do that again. I think it was on the Monday or Tuesday then, they came up to me. We want you to go to Torquay store and I want you to learn new starter induction. You've got another one to do on Saturday. I'm like, oh, great. Went and saw how they were doing it and thought, okay, that makes a bit of sense to me now, actually seeing it rather than just reading from it. Went and delivered another one. It was bad, but still better than kind of it was. And at the time, I was no good at talking in front of people. And then they came to me and said, would you like to do this as your job? And we'll take you off the hot food counter. And I'm in an hour and I thought, why not? I wanted to progress and be a manager, and I saw this as a natural next step. And I did that for about 3 years. And got to the point where I was 20, 21, and I had a lot of energy. And I wanted to progress to be a line manager. And I saw the only way I could do that was to go back onto the shop floor and kind of show what I can do. I was a trader at the time. So I applied for a couple of jobs within the same store to be a supervisor back on the shop floor, and was taken into the uniform cupboard to be told, no, you're not leaving HR because we can't afford to lose you. So I should have taken that as a real big compliment. I didn't take it as that at all. I took it as, right, you're holding me back, so I need to leave. And I put in a complaint, and this is where being really young and stupid, I didn't understand how the world worked. And I put in a complaint to the store manager at the time, not realising the HR manager and store manager, well, they're best friends. So my punishment was they put me on nights. They said, you want to be a supervisor, do it on nights. Oh, by the way, you're starting tonight. So I was like, okay. And I didn't like nights. I had 2 really young children. I remember one day waking up. This was funny, but it wasn't at the time. I was looking after my 2 kids, fell asleep on the sofa. I got woken up by my daughter hitting me in the face. She tried to change her brother's nappy. And as you can imagine, her hands were not clean. And I went out into the hallway, and everywhere, all over the carpet, the walls. And that was my point, like, I can't do this. Can't work nights. So I went and got a job at Tesco's in Exeter as fresh foods manager. So it was a promotion. I look back now as well at salaries. I think I was on 22,000 as a manager then. You look at minimum wage right now, it's no different, is it?
It's mad how the salaries have changed over that time.
Yeah.
I think when you said about your minimum wage when you started Sainsbury's, I think I worked in a pub when I was a student, and I think I was on $5.25 an hour, and I thought I was raking it in.
Yeah.
Because I was doing kind of 60-hour weeks between uni, and yeah, I thought I was now. Yeah, although we're probably both on less than that.
Yeah, and you know what? It's all relative as well. Back then, were household bills as expensive as they were now? It wasn't the case, was it?
No, and I'm pretty sure you still get penny sweets.
You could.
And it's been a long time since I've seen
the little beer bottles.
A penny sweet.
Yeah. I think they were 2p, weren't they, the beer bottles?
Yeah, just push the boat out for beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I was at Tesco's, and I really liked working at Tesco's. It was really, really good. I was fresh foods manager. After a year, they said to me, would you like to be the bakery manager? Now, at the time, what do I know about bakery? Absolutely nothing. All I knew was the shelves had to be full. And they said to me at the time, you've done a great job leading the team. Now, I was 21. I thought I'd been really up against it leading the team. And I'd come across stuff I hadn't come across before. So there was a guy there who was about 15 years older than me. He didn't like being told what to do by a younger male. In one way, I was still quite immature. I don't blame him. But what I hear these days, that is still a thing. And I'd say it's kind of ageism. It's still a thing, and you've really got to earn your stripes to get that respect. There was a fight between 2 employees that I kind of had to help with. And I'd kind of within the store become the go-to guy when there's investigations and disciplinaries. Somehow I had a knack to it, and I could listen. And it was not just about sat there listening, it was about actively listening. And I think a bit of empathy comes into it as well. And I look back, that's all from my childhood, of where I had a really, really crap time. So I can understand how people feel. There's still policies and everything, but I can understand how you feel and why things have happened. So I ended up becoming the go-to guy for that. So I went into the bakery. And the bakery is a real hard slog. And, you know, if any bakers are watching this, sorry, but bakers are a breed to their own. And very, very old school back then. didn't like change. Who does like change? But didn't like change. And a lot of things are in supermarkets. They change very, very quickly. And it's about how you bring people along that change. I had some good time, but that bakery was underperforming massively. Within a year, I got asked, can I go with my boss to Birmingham? And there's a bit of a conference. What I didn't realise was there was also an award ceremony. And I won an award. I had the biggest increase in sales every single week, consistently for 52 weeks, across the whole of Tesco's. So I was like bakery manager of the year. And like that was a massive surprise to me because again at the time I thought I was really, really up against it. And it's really where I learned how to manage people at the time. And there was a few things happening there, and bakers are just crazy. I remember one of the head baker, there was a girl that came in working, they were having some banter, he took her hat off and the jam hopper placed on top of her head and jam went everywhere. And being a young manager, it was a crazy busy Saturday, and I was like, if the store manager came over and saw that, he's suspended, she's gone home, I am screwed. And I'm bricking it. I'm like, I know what I need to do, but I don't want to do it. And then she went to the toilet, came back, and I was like, are you okay? She was like, I'm fine, let's just carry on. And I was like, thank God, but that could have gone so differently for me then. And that's the point where I was like, I've allowed a certain amount of banter, it's gone too far. And that was me as a manager then, really figuring out how to be a leader. I think that for me was a turning point. And then, so I did bakery for another year or so. And then an old manager from Sainsbury's came in shopping and said, I heard you were here as bakery manager. I heard what you've done. Can you come and work in our Exeter store? And I was like, why? I'm quite happy here, thanks. And they offered me £5,000 more. Now, at the time, I was all about show me the money. And I will go where the money is. So I went, and this was one of the worst moments of my life, really. So at the time, my wife at the time decided to leave me. So that was difficult. Starting a new job and going through that personally was difficult. Trying to find somewhere else to live and so on. My mum took her own life, and that was particularly difficult. Not for the reasons some people would think. So me and my mum, we didn't have a best relationship. She hated me from the age of 3 years old. Used to beat the living crap out of me. And it all came to a head. I think I was about 7. My dad walked in. She had me up against the wall, throat in one hand, hammer in the other. So if my dad hadn't walked in there, who knows? I'd always wanted to have a relationship with my mum. And she always didn't want it. And the reason being, I kind of understand it, but also don't understand it, was she had a miscarriage when I was 3 years old. And she blamed me as a 3-year-old for her miscarriage. And then as I grew up, she absolutely resented me for that. And when I ended up having children, and I bumped into her and I was like, hi, Mum, this is your granddaughter and grandson. She ran off and wrote me a letter saying, in her mind, I should never allow to be have kids because I took her child away. And I look back and think, I don't understand that. But it's that kind of it's that mental health piece. And I wonder if that happened this day and age, would there be some more support? I don't know if there would be. There's more talk about it, but I don't know if there's more support. But anyway, she ended up taking her own life. And I had to go and identify her body and sort all of that stuff out. It was a real horrible time. And I remember going to work to say, I think I had a week's holiday, and I was like, I need some more time off. I need a couple of weeks. And they refused. And I was like, is it compassionate leave? And they were like, no, we need you here. And my boss at the time was bullying me. She did not like a younger manager in there. And for whatever reason, whatever I did, she did not like. That was really all of that at once was too much. And in the end, the store manager that brought me in actually moved to a different store. So the store manager at the time and my boss sat me down and they gave me 3 options. And they said, right now we'll accept your resignation. Now I think I'd been there 4 months, going through all of that in 4 months. And I thought that was quite harsh. So either they accept my resignation, if not, they're going to performance manage me out of the business. Not, or we want to help you improve anything, it's we are going to performance manage you out of the business. Or I can go and work in their Plymouth store and I'm their problem now. What would you do in that situation?
That's a tough choice, isn't it? I think I'd probably leave. I think I'd probably take the resignation, to be honest. I think if you've been somewhere for that amount of time, not very long, and you've been through all that, and thank you for sharing, because I'm sure it's still not easy to talk about, I think I'd probably walk. I don't think I'd want to work in an environment like that. But it's always easy to look back.
And I think at the time, I wasn't strong enough to do that. If you think of like, there's a version of you which is up here, I was down, like rock bottom. So I said, okay, I'll go to Plymouth. And the next week, I went down to Plymouth to meet the store manager and the deputy manager. And he sat me down and went, we know why you're here. Why are you here? And I said, to prove those fuckers wrong. And they were like, cool, we like that attitude, we can work with you. And within a year, I'd won a national award for being their bakery manager and some stuff I'd done. I won an award with Warburton's because I sold the most Warburton's crumpets in a 2-week period from any other retailer in the country. That was because of a mistake. I ordered too many.
Why are you not on the Warburton advert?
When I went down there, I really looked at the rest of the heads of departments weren't as strong as what I knew I could be. And I brought people along the journey, not dictating and not telling them, but showing them different bits. And I really did prove them wrong. I also went to head office in London and I gave them 5 ideas how to improve profit. So it could be, one of the ideas was in the frozen cookies that come in. So you see them on the shelves all the time. One of the problems we had is you could buy the frozen cookies, but on a different budget was the packaging. Now, if you'd gone over your budget, you can't get the packaging for the cookies. So when they had competitions on, like who can sell the most, we were never winning. So I said, why don't you just make the boxes that the frozen cookies come in a little bit bigger and put in the packaging? That way, I can order it in one go, it's not affecting any budget, and I can sell the most. And guess what? They did it, and I sold the most. Okay. So I gave them 5 ideas. They took every single idea on. And I was like, that's brilliant. And that was me starting to get better again. And then an opportunity came up at the Co-op as store manager. And I handed my notice in at Sainsbury's, and they were like, no, we don't want you to go. And I'm like, a year ago, you were about to sack me. So I've done my healing process. I'm ready to move on now. And went to the Co-op as a store manager. So that was my big first, like, wow. And I remember starting off there, and we had to go to Birmingham every couple of weeks. I can't remember for how long, as like a store manager development program. And tables of people all around the country. And they said, give us an example of the leader that inspires you the most. Everyone was going around the table saying, my old store manager, he did this, my old store manager did that. And it got really boring. And it got to me, and my brain was like, oh, God, what's a leader that's inspired me? Because I hadn't really had anyone that had really inspired me. Some people were saying their dad and mum, and I hadn't had that. I hadn't been inspired. So I stood up, and I was like, Woody from Toy Story. Because the way that he brings all the other toys along with him, and for me, that was the start of me thinking outside the box and thinking, leaders don't just have to be the same as what everyone says. And I can start being that different. And it was me, I think, kind of evolving in kind of what I do. So within the Co-op, I managed 3 stores. Each store was bigger than the last one. I also was a project manager for when they closed down some stores. I did one in Newton Abbot where they kind of give you a guide. You've got 12 weeks. This is the budget you've got. And I saved them £22,000. And they came to me and said, how the hell did you do that? And it was all about utilising the team. So there were some decisions I made which went against what Co-op kind of said, but I did it for the right reasons. And they came back and were like, could you come to Manchester and could you help us rewrite the closure programme? Then there was another shop that's closing. It was in Torquay. Chelston is moving from one end of the road to the other. And I got involved in that. Again, saved them a load of money. And I said to them, I've saved you this money. Can I have some of it as a bonus? And they were like, if you asked us 5 years ago, that was a thing. It's not anymore, I'm afraid. And then there was a big HR project where they had a huge restructure within the stores where the problem with Co-op, what they had at the time, was about, I think it was like 150 different job titles within all these different stores. And they really simplified it and put in a structure of a deputy manager and some supervisors. So I helped on the panel for that across the Southwest, doing all the interviews and helped put into that. And I enjoyed that type of thing. And then I got headhunted by Morrison's. And they came, and I saw a guy a few weeks ago who was there at the same time, and we both laugh about this. We both got told, there's 3 of us actually from Co-op, we all didn't know each other was joining Morrison's. And it was when they were doing the M-Local stores. And what got sold to me was, come and be an area manager, but first we need you to open the store in Plymouth. Okay, cool. And they said to me it'd be about 6 months, then you'll be the area manager. That for me was the next progression. Turned up at a big store in Plymouth, and then there was another store manager from Co-op there, and another store manager from Co-op. And we were like, what are you doing here? You know, like that meme with the Spider-Man, right? They're like, well, we've been promised area manager, but we have to open, and one of them said paint and still one of them said talking, and we're like, we know what's just going on here. We've been scammed. And after a day, we all realised this was a load of crap. And actually, we all looked as, from business point of view, locals won't work. I think it was a year and then they all closed down. So we were right. I knew my gut instinct was right. And so I did Morrison's, and that was that really. Left there, went to a budget supermarket. I was there for 8 weeks, and the way they treated people, it did not sit right with me at all. I ended up giving like my tie to the area manager at the time. I was like, I'm done, I walk away. And then I was like, okay, what do I do? I just walked away from my whole career, which took me 16 years. Didn't have a clue what to do. So I took about a month off. And at the time, I thought, in our kitchen, we had some like ceramic tiles and a lot of them were cracked. I was like, I've got some time. Let's rip them up and let's put laminate flooring in. Ripped it up and it was rotten underneath. I was like, this isn't good.
Project you wish you never started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phoned up the insurance company, they brought someone round, and they ended up, instead of finding people to fix it, they gave me some money to do it. So I had some time, and I made that money last. So I redid the flooring, I redid my garden, I redid the flooring in the living room, we painted, I made that money go a long, long way and did a lot. And I was like, actually, I like this. Is there something in it? And I kind of thought at the time, maybe I should do a trade. Maybe I should do plumbing. So I went to a place, I think it's PGL in Exeter, to see if I can do a plumbing course there. And when I was in the car park, I noticed loads of vans, all branded. You had a gardener, a plumber, an electrician. I saw a handyman one. I was like, ooh, is this the idea? And I went home to my ex-wife and kind of said, what about his and hers home and garden services? She was like, no. By the end of the next day, I had some business cards. I set up a Facebook, and I was like, let's give it a go. And kind of advertised, got some work in. Some gardening clearances, some decking. I love building decking. Some laminate flooring. And that was going okay. And then I thought, I need some printed T-shirts, like you do. You know me, I love a branded top.
We just had that conversation. Clearly, still slacking on that front.
Yeah. And went somewhere to get some branded tops. They came back and they were awful. They'd heat pressed a crease right through the middle. And it got me thinking, how hard is it to print T-shirts? Can't be that difficult. Turns out it is pretty difficult. And the equipment's pretty expensive. But because we made some money in this business, I kind of got to the point as well, I was tired and I didn't trust anyone else to bring them on board with us. And I thought, if you've got a product, surely I can become a millionaire because I'm just selling stuff then. So we bought a heat press, a printing machine about that big, and started a printed embroidery company, which is still going today. My ex is running that. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the branding. I loved going out and networking. I loved business shows. I came up with this really cool gimmick where I was at a business expo looking around and everyone was walking around like a jumble sale. And I was like, how do I get people to come to my stand that's worthwhile? And we could print mugs. And yeah, got a printed mug today. And what I've started doing lately, actually, I've been taking my printed mugs, branded mugs, to networking events. And everyone's been commenting on them. And I'm like, it's getting attention. So what we did, I came up with the idea that if I could print mugs at a business expo, that means I've got people in front of me for 3 minutes. And on the mug, on one side, we printed their name, then it was tea, coffee, and a tick, sugars, and milk at the bottom. And the other side was our logo and the Business Expo's logo. And I pitched the idea, can you give me a free stand? I will do this printing with your logo on. And the person straight away was like, no. Why would we? I was like, okay, cool. I'll move on. I went on to another person and ended up doing an expo in Wolverhampton, in Birmingham, in Torquay. The stand was free. But yeah, it cost us a bit of money with the mugs. But what I found from that, I had people in front of me for 3 minutes. I can have a conversation. They then took pictures of the mug and put it on social media. So my advertising just went through the roof. Some really, really good work from that. And then the person next to her came back, I think it was like a week before their expo, and say, oh, we've got a stand. Do you want it half price? No, thank you. Everyone else give it to me for free. And then I think it's 2 days before, and they're like, yeah, we'll do it for free. Did it, and I was like, there you go. I proved you wrong. And that's what I love doing. I love proving people wrong.
It's interesting how it works out like that, isn't it? I want to touch on a couple of bits that you've talked about. Lots to kind of go through there. And obviously a very kind of varied career all across the grocery stores.
Yeah.
And not many you haven't worked for, so I'm sure there's some really interesting, deeper stories that we probably can't share on here. But it sounds to me like HR has probably always been at the kind of root of what you're doing, whether you understood it as a younger man or not. And I think we've all been through that, where there's an underlying current, but it just takes that time to get through. And I think you touched on it a few times, but you said about older people not liking change, not liking taking instruction from young people.
Person, yeah.
And I think we've been there. And I'm particularly young compared to my school year, which when I was first starting out was always a thing. So I qualified after my degree much younger than anyone else. So as I got promoted, I suffered the same thing. So I think that's really interesting for people. So that HR journey has really been there. When you walked out, you said you handed your tie in, which I love. It's like mic drop with a tie. How did that feel?
So I was particularly angry at that moment in time. So what they did was there was a store being built in Paynton, and I applied for store manager there. And when I turned up, we had to go to, I think it was Liskeard. I could be wrong with that, but I think it was Liskeard. It's a long way away. And they said we had to do 8 weeks training down there. Cool, get that. Turned up, and there was 5 other people taking on for the same job. And I'm like, this is Morrison's all over again. And what I found with this company was they take on 5 people and they see who they can break. So during the 8 weeks training, they said, well, one of you needs to stay down here. Bear in mind, I lived in Paynton. It was a good hour and a half to get to work. One of the days with traffic, it took me 2.5 hours to get there. Other people lived, there was someone in Torquay, someone, and the rest were in Exeter. It made no sense for any one of these people to work down there. So they went round to one person and said, well, can you do it? And they went, yes, if you give me for the next year a hotel for 2 nights a week, because I can make that work then. So they said no. Someone else said yes, but if you can guarantee my days off are together and I want petrol. No. Got someone else and there was like, if you can give me this pay rise to make it worthwhile. No. They got to me and they said, you are doing it. And the store manager at the time said, you are doing it and you're here for a year. And I said, are you asking or telling? And I'd kind of lost patience with kind of supermarkets in general then. And he was like, we are telling you, that is what is going to happen. I was like, no, thank you. And then he was like, you need to go to, he came back to me about half an hour later and said, you need to go to Exeter now and see the area manager. And what I found out at the time, within that particular place, a store manager could never be an area manager. And I was like, there's no progression. Once you hit store manager, that's it, you're done. And that's not where I liked or wanted to be at that time. I always wanted to progress as high as I possibly could. So an area manager from there, they come straight out of uni. I don't know what they go on to be. But anyway, there was this person straight out of uni, and she started swearing at me and telling me I had to be there in a way where, as being in my position now, I'm like, you do not talk to people like that. You're never going to get the right outcome. And you get the outcome that they got in the end. And that was me throwing my tie at her and saying, I'm done. And as I drove home, I had such a big smile on my face because it was, for me, the last couple of years of being in that type of environment, I was ready to just walk away and do something else. This has forced me to do that. If I hadn't been forced to do it, I'd probably still be in supermarkets now. So sometimes you need that bit of a push, don't you? That thing that just breaks you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really key for people to understand, that you can want to do something else, feel like it's not quite right, but it takes time to really move on and understand. And it might be something happens like that, which I would kind of call something external, or it might be something internal, internal tragedy, internal, just something happens. Kids is always a good example. Having a child changes life, and it might still take 2-3 years to work through that. But people then will go, do you know what? That's what's changed my life, and I need to move on. And it is quite liberating and quite freeing when you get there. And you mentioned something earlier, and it was, you said something along the lines of, if you knew now what you knew then is what you were kind of saying.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big thing. And I've talked about it several times on the podcast and in my content, because it's really hard, isn't it, to tell our future selves what we know now.
Yeah.
And if we could share that and look and say, it'll be all right. You throw your tie in, it will be okay. And clearly you went on to do tiles, which I think is brilliant, and clearly making that money stretch is a really fantastic. Do you think that was the start of that entrepreneurial journey?
Because I hadn't really got into that type of thing before, or even thinking about own business, and that was the start of it. It's funny, isn't it, how a broken tile can lead to the rest of your life, pretty much. And
it was a bounce castle for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my daughter had a bounce castle party. And I'd already been through some of what you'd been through, quit my job, moved down to Devon, and I stood talking to the guy doing the bounce castles, and I thought, there's something in this, and there's something in parties, and And I think that's probably where we first met, actually, when you were doing clothing.
Yeah, it was.
And I think that's probably when we first met, probably networking. And for me, that was that spark, like you said. And it was almost like when you said about seeing the van with Handyman, that's the next step and the next step.
Yeah.
And then you move on.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's amazing how it goes. And that spirit that you clearly have, do you think now you still have that? Is it stronger? Is it more concentrated, more focused?
I've still got it. And my wife can get annoyed with me sometimes because my brain doesn't switch off. And it's something that I've tried. I went through a period 4 years ago, which we'll get to, where I really did switch off my brain. And but at the moment, my brain doesn't switch off, and I'm always thinking of different ideas. And I like having people around me where I can say some ideas to, and they can just say, no, you're on the wrong track, or yeah, that's good, or give me some honest feedback. My wife is one of those people that she's an accountant, so very risk adverse. Love her so much.
I'll say nothing about accountants.
And I can have an idea, and she can be like, no. And I know she's thinking from the business point of view of why that's a no. But it's good to have people around you that you can bounce ideas off, because then it becomes really focused. And where I am at the moment, I'm still trying to find my niche, but I'm pretty sure I've honed in on that now at the moment with the leadership training, and that's kind of where my direction is going to be. But around there, there's still like a million different things. Like, oh, I could do this, or I could do that. And it's like, okay, how does that actually benefit me? How does that benefit other people? And ultimately, it doesn't matter what most people say. We do it for the love of doing it. We do it for money.
Absolutely. And I fully appreciate the next shiny object as well. We are very similar. That's like, oh, yeah, we do this, but you have to focus. And I think it's really good to have people around you like-minded, your wife, my wife.
Yeah.
Love them to bits. Absolutely love them to bits. Hopefully they might watch, so we definitely love them to bits. But they're not always the best people to ask, because if they're in a different position, not entrepreneurs, not got their own company, and I often talk about it when you ask family members.
Yeah.
Because they speak from a point of concern and a point of worry, and often project their own fears onto you as well. So when you kind of say, to someone, your brother maybe, oh, do you think this is going to go? Well, not really, no. Why would you do that? It just doesn't really help. So it's good to have that like-minded people that you can share. And finding your niche is really, really key to it, but you're still having those ideas.
Yeah, and you need to... your niche comes after a bit of time when you figure it out. But when people are saying to you, oh, no, that could go wrong, or, what's the worst that can happen? Always flip it. What is the best that can happen?
Absolutely.
Like, if I don't do it, am I missing an opportunity? Am I missing a chance to connect with great people? So I'm at the moment where I'm just saying, yeah, unless I've got a gut feeling. I've really learned lately in the last couple of years to trust my gut feeling. If my gut is saying no, then I'm saying no. A lot of the time before, if my gut was saying no, I'll be like, but yeah, let's just do it. And I'd end up getting burnt somehow. So if my gut says no, I trust that feeling at the moment.
And that comes with time and experience, for sure. Because I think when you start your own business, back on that entrepreneurial journey to start with, looking at the vans, going, oh, I could do this, do that, T-shirts, mugs, all of that. You go, yeah. People say, can you do this? Of course you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you realise that you can't do everything. You can't say yes to everything. Yeah. Not every potential client is actually going to be beneficial.
No.
So stopping and reflecting, going, that isn't right.
There's one thing that a lot of people I see make big mistakes with. They compare themselves to other people. So you could be an accountant and you're comparing yourself. You're looking at all the other accountants and think, oh, I'm not as big as them. I'm not as good as them. Or this is a way that someone said to me once. Imagine your next door neighbour. They do the same job as you, but their house is a lot better than yours. They drive a Jag. You drive an old banger. And you're looking at them thinking, how the hell are they doing that? I'm doing the same as them. What trick am I missing? So you're always searching for that next thing. What you don't know is how do they get there? You don't know, did someone in their family die and they inherit a house? Or have they won the lottery? Or have they got a massive bank loan? or something like, you don't know. So for me, as I've gone into this, I'm not comparing myself to anyone else. I'm being authentically me, trying to be a friendly HR person, because that's naturally me. I'm a friendly person. I like to help other people out. So I just thought, I don't care about everyone else. If I can collaborate with them, great. If they want to do different stuff, cool. I'm not going to chase their shiny thing. I know what I want to do. I know what I enjoy and what value I can bring. So I'm just going to focus on that one path of me.
And that is, again, absolutely key to maturity and moving forward. Because you said earlier about chasing the promotion, chasing the money. Again, I see that in myself. I see it in many people that I speak to.
Yeah.
That's it. And then you reach a point and you do something else. And then you have that kind of, I'll do everything. And then you settle.
Yeah.
And now, I'm just going to be me.
Yeah.
And I'm in exactly the same place. The shiny objects are great, but that's not what I want. Would I like to be flying around the world in my private jet? Yeah. Possibly, probably. But the reality is very different, and I accept the reality is very different. And actually, I'm not sure that's what I really want. I just want to spend time with my kids and my family and help people do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're kind of
my
in a similar place.
My priorities changed. So when I was... Where did I get to? I got to clothing, print and embroidery. I left there when I got divorced, and when I worked at Paint and Zoo, as they called it, a guest experience manager. There was a lot. That role was absolutely huge, and I loved it. And it was very, very people focused. People focused with the employees, also people focused with the guests coming in and that type of thing. And it was a very, very varied job, and I absolutely loved it. And then COVID hit, and a lot of people were made redundant, and my time had kind of come to an end there. So started really randomly a carpet cleaning business. Now, both me and you have a mutual friend, Aaron, whose podcast studio this is.
Thank you, Aaron.
And me and Aaron started up a carpet cleaning business, and we come from very, very different backgrounds, and none of us had done that before. I went on a training course for it. But looking at from a business point of view, the stuff I'd known from previous businesses came in very handy. The stuff that Aaron knew from websites and SEO and marketing and all that stuff. And we were the best team to work with each other and had such a great time. And it got to a point where we were like, we're just not making as much money as we want to make. So we made a decision to put the company up for sale and do our separate things. Now that for me, when I got to the end, my life completely changed. So my new wife, Dawn, moved in with me, and I'd redone our kitchen and got the house ready for her to move in. We went to Creeley, and it was at Halloween, and I ended up, I think that was on the Saturday, on the Monday, I wasn't feeling very well, and I started a new job somewhere. The Tuesday, I had a huge headache, but right on the top of my head. I was like, oh, this isn't good. The Wednesday felt even worse. Thursday went and tested positive for COVID. Then I started going downhill very, very quickly. And I think within the next week, I got to the point where I was FaceTiming the doctor, and they were like, you're right on the edge. We don't know what to do with you, because you're not quite ill enough to go to hospital, but you're really, really ill as you are. And then it came to the day, and I don't really remember this day. I was in bed, my wife was calling the doctor, and they said to her, every time he takes a breath, just say a word, so he doesn't know. So she did that, and he said, he needs to go to hospital now. Do not wait for an ambulance. I'll phone the hospital to say you're on the way, get into hospital. I don't know how she got me out of that bed into the car. Turned up at A&E, and they wouldn't allow me in. So they came out, did the observations, they left us in the car, but where A&E is, got the checkered lines outside that said park there. And it got to a point where she thought I was going to die. So ran in, and they literally dragged me into the hospital. They're like, can't wait any longer. And I got told later on, if I hadn't gone into hospital that day, I probably would have died that night. And I ended up having pneumonia, chest infection, and COVID. and I was in hospital for a little while. I was on a ward with 3 old men who were really, really sick. And I think it was like day 2, I was looking around like, geez, why am I on this ward? That's how ill I was. Now, where my life changed, it took me about 10 months to actually get better. I couldn't do any physical jobs. I could barely walk. I'd lost so much weight. The medication and everything stripped the good bacteria out of my gut. I'm still having issues with that today. And I was just a mess. I went for MRI scans. They found in the back of my eyes, my nerves had swelled up. And I was complaining I had jelly legs. I call it COVID legs. And I still get that every now and then now. And it's because the nerves in your eyes swelled up, follow the nervous system down, goes down to your legs. I really, really struggled for about 10 months. And I had to take a step back and think, what do I want to do with the rest, like 20 years of my career? Look back, what did I enjoy? What am I good at? I went and spoke to some old colleagues and friends and asked them the question, what am I good at? And it all came back, it needs to be with people. And I was like, okay, I think I know HR, but I need to do the CIPD level 5 first. Did that and realised, yeah, I do know. I was disappointed with that course. I didn't learn as much as I thought I would, but what it did, it reignited everything. Where all the stuff in the supermarkets, it all came back. The stuff in what I was doing in the zoo, it all came back. It's like, I do know this. And I ended up getting a job at McCure and Ibis Styles as multi-site HR manager. And absolutely loved it. Loved everything about that job. One of the questions I asked head office was, what leadership training do we have for supervisors and managers? So like I said before, the people that's really good at their job, been promoted, haven't had any guidance on how to have difficult conversations and all that type of stuff. And they said, no, there isn't any training. So I hooked up with another HR manager in Leeds, and we put together this training package. And we did it as a 6-day training course, but it was split into 2 days and 2 days and 2 days. We went to Leeds, Edinburgh, Maidenhead, Paignton, and different people from different hotels. They nominated the people to come along, and we delivered this training. And I absolutely loved it. I love those moments where you're talking to someone and you can see their brain just like, ping, yes, that's what I should have done at that point. And then having just that safe environment where people can tell their stories, no judgment, it's not going to leave the room, and able to work through some stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's the stuff I really, really enjoy doing. And that's something I think a lot of businesses, they don't focus on leadership training at that end. They always focus at the top end. And last year, I got a call, again, which changed my life. So my dad had moved to Spain about 8-9 years ago. Was living in Spain. All his life been alcoholic, but he'd always been a really hard worker. He's gone to Spain, and he slowed right down. And his life kind of was go to bed during the day, get up at 4 o'clock, have something to eat, watch Emmerdale, go to the pub to about 1 in the morning. And that's what their community was. And I got a call in May last year from one of his neighbours. And they said, just to let you know, your dad's had a fall. We think he was on the floor for 2 days before someone found him. Wow. He's in hospital, he's in a ward, he's okay. They've strapped his arms to his bed because he's a bit disorientated. We think he's getting dementia. Can you come out and support? Can you come out and get some care out for him? So I went and said to my boss, and he was like, go whenever you need to go, it's fine. And I looked at flight tickets, and just say this was Friday. The Saturday and Sunday was like 500 quid, but the Monday was going to cost me 50 quid. And I was like, phoned them back, still in hospital, still on the ward, still everything okay? Yeah, it's fine. So I thought I'll leave it to Monday. I was a day too late. So when I got there, he'd had a stroke a heart attack and was in intensive care. It took me about 3 hours to find that out because I didn't speak Spanish. And in the hospital, they didn't want to use Google Translate. And it was just like the most frustrating time ever.
Yeah.
Went to see him in intensive care. I counted 16 different screens all on him. It was a mess. I never actually got to have that conversation with him. And I was there for 2 weeks. And at the end of the second week, they were like, his brain hasn't woke up. We need to make a decision. So I had to make, the decision, which isn't a great decision. Either way, it wasn't going to be a very good decision. So his life ended. I had to sort everything out there. I started drinking a lot as well. My relationship with alcohol throughout my life has been quite a big thing. My dad was a massive alcoholic, so he was always around. Remember, like 15, 16-year-olds, me and my mates, we called field trips, where we go to a field, get some alcohol, and set fire. My dad's relationship with alcohol was, there you go, take it. And he gave us the alcohol because then he knew in his mind, he was like, I know what you're drinking. It's fine. And I'd always kind of, every now and then have a drink. If I was out and about, and I look back in my 20s, if I was out and about and had one drink, I can't just do one drink. I'm all in. And then I found in like my late teens, early 20s, when I was drinking, I was very much, look at me, I'm amazing. I can jump off a car, that type of thing. And it was just crazy. And I look back, it's only recently I've looked back and thought, why was I like that? Because I didn't have any attention when I was a kid. So I was drinking a lot out in Spain to get through it, pretty much. I got back and never really had anxiety, and it hit me. As soon as I got back, it was like, whoa. I remember being, I think it was in Tesco's in Newton Abbot, me and my wife were shopping, and I experienced a really bad, I'd say it's anxiety attack, and I said to her, I have to leave. I can't be in here right now. And I had to just walk out, and I was like, well, this is not good. And I decided, I went for a night out with my brother on the 3rd of July to raise a glass to my dad's name and so on. Had a heavy night. The next morning I woke up. I was like, I am done with alcohol. Haven't touched a drop since. And it was nearly a year of not drinking it. There's only once within that year, which was early on this year actually, I was gasping for a cider. Didn't have it, had a alcohol-free one. Yeah. They're nice, but it's not the same.
It's not the same, no.
But for me, it was just that after seeing my dad, how he was, I didn't want my wife to ever have to see me in that way. And I'm not saying I drunk a lot before, like in the last 4 or 5 years, but once I pop, I just can't stop.
Yeah.
Type thing. But it's been a real life changer for me. So when it came to making a decision to leave the Mercure, part of it, in my head, I've now recovered from COVID. And it took me, like I said, about 10 months to get better, but then years to get in the space of, I think I want to do something myself again and get back into that mindset. Almost, COVID killed that part of my brain. And now it's back. And I was talking about, okay, I think it's HR that I want to do. I really enjoy this. This is my future. What could it be called? What could I do? Looking around and trying to find names. And every time I found a name that I liked, I went to buy the domain name. Guess what? Gone. Someone's already taken it. So I was like, okay, I want to find a name that could be a brand that isn't necessarily associated with HR. And that's where Growberry came from. So the Grow, imagine it's spelt correctly. The Grow is, I like to help people grow, help businesses grow.
Great.
Want to grow myself. The berry part, we moved house a year and a half ago, and really, really happy in that house. And our estate it's got the word berry in it. So, and if you look to buy the domain name, Growberry, spelt correctly, it was $5,000. So I thought, let's have a little play on it. And that's where kind of the name came from. And as I was putting things together, I was like, when's a good time to launch a business? And my dad came back into my head. I was a day late. What the hell am I waiting for? And that's when I kind of thought, let's just go all in. Let's do it.
Now's the time.
Yeah, because there's never a good time. And is there?
Yeah.
Never really.
No, absolutely. Do it now.
Yeah.
Take that action.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
And you have. And here you are.
Here I am.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for sharing, because I know that's kind of hard. I appreciate those feelings around dads. I have very similar. Different story, but, very similar. So I kind of appreciate that and how hard it can be. But Growberry, I think finding that domain name is a really good starting point.
Yeah.
But definitely do it and do it now, because you never know
exactly
what's going to happen. And it's interesting to talk about having that COVID brain and losing some of that spark, because I think it's very interesting that you can have that drive, that passion. Like you said, it took a while for you to tie drop, leave, do, build. And then I think you do stagnate a little bit. And I'm going to guess probably around kind of 4 years, 5 years. And I think that's quite common for people to get to that point, and then you just have a bit of a plateau. And you don't really know what you're doing, maybe do something else, go back into employment, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It does happen. But if that's what it takes to then have that spark again, to move forward, to make a change, what a fantastic story. So what's next for what's the dream for Growberry and for you?
For me, I'm moving more into the leadership side of things. So always will do the HR stuff. I want to work with businesses with their HR.
Always needed.
Always needed. A lot of businesses only use the HR side when something's gone wrong. When I want to change that perception, actually get us in right at the beginning. Let's do stuff proactively, because I will save you time, money, and sleepless nights. Let's not wait till it gets to a point. For me, with Growberry, I'm starting to write a book on simple leadership. And I'm saying simple because it's aimed at those people. They don't need to know loads of different models and all that type of stuff. It's just something practical. This is how you give some effective feedback. This is how you take feedback when it's given to you, and that type of thing. So I'm writing the book. I want to get it published, hopefully beginning of next year.
Excellent.
I've just put a date up for in September at the Mercure to do a half-day training session, so people can book onto that.
We'll put a link to that for people that are interested.
Cool, thank you. And again, that's aimed at leadership. I'm going to be doing, probably end of this year, beginning next year, doing some videos so I can do an online course. So then I can aim that at kind of people, not businesses, but employees who think, yeah, I could do with knowing how to do some of this stuff and doing it at a very reasonable price. And then I want to do an online cohort as well. So over 6 weeks, where people, let's just say on a Monday evening, sign in and we go through a subject. On a Thursday evening, sign in and it's questions and answers about that subject. And then they also get a one-to-one session with me. So that's where I want to go within the next year and kind of see where that takes me.
So creating a community.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. And again, we've kind of touched on it already about being authentic, being ourselves, and helping just, I'm going to say, the normal people. And I mean that in the nicest, broadest sense. But we're not talking executives. We're not talking, super leaders here. We're talking entrepreneurs that maybe have their own business, small to medium size, just the kind of everyday you and me, which make up a huge proportion of the working population.
Yeah.
The entrepreneur kind of people as well. And I think it's key that those people feel supported.
Definitely. And a lot of the leadership stuff I talk about, yes, it's aimed at managing people. But you can flip it a little bit as well. So as a business owner, if you're coming in, you're learning how to give feedback, how to have clear communication, you can use that with your customers. Or, when people are objecting, trying to give you a bad review or something, you can use those skills in that situation as well. So there's a lot opens a lot of doors, really. So that's kind of where I'm aiming to go with this and really see how it takes. At the moment, I'm out networking everywhere. Hopefully, a lot of people see my stuff on LinkedIn as well. I'm really trying to grow my LinkedIn profile. Yeah. It's really funny. So I had a photo shoot month ago, and I took along a pink blow-up flamingo.
I'm surprised
I should
you
have
didn't
brought
bring
it, actually. I was at a networking event yesterday, and people were like, "Where's your flamingo?" But people have said to me, "Why did you have a pink flamingo? What's that got to do with HR and leadership?" My answer is, don't know. I just took it. But how I kind of wanted to present myself was I'd look at, and I mean this generally, so I don't mean this specifically at anyone. A lot of HR consultants, when you look on LinkedIn, you can tell they're HR consultants. And I wanted the opposite. I want to do the complete opposite to what other people are doing. One, for attention. Now, I don't like having attention on me as such, but as a business owner, as you know, you need people to be looking at you, taking notice, and yeah, it might be really cringe. But it doesn't matter. Push through that cringe, because as long as you're appearing on people's feeds or you're going out networking and people recognise you and talking to you, it's going to help in the long term, isn't it? So, yeah.
And being you, being that authentic,
yeah,
it can be a real struggle, which is weird, like being yourself. It's like being on camera.
Do you know
I'm
what?
not a big fan of it.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to push through it. And I heard somewhere this week, but that is how you sound, that's how you look, that's what everyone else sees. It's only you that has a problem with that.
Do you know what? It's really, really difficult being that as well, especially on LinkedIn, I find. Because in your head, something's preset within your head. LinkedIn's professional. And you look at other people's posts and you think, oh, that sounds not quite like them, but look, they've got 200 likes, loads of comments. That's how I need to sound. And I've kind of, we're on my journey. I'm like, actually, I don't care. It's again, I'm not comparing myself to other people now. I don't care what other people are getting. I'll do my thing. If it attracts people, brilliant. But if it attracts people, they're the right people for me. Yeah. So I'm just going to keep doing my kind of thing, really.
Exactly that. I don't think you could put it any clearer. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. I tell my kids this all the time. An ongoing battle, as I know you will understand.
Yeah.
Do it for you. Do what feels right for you, and it just makes it so much easier. I think
when you're talking to kids about that, I don't think they get it. And it comes with maturity. You need to go through something. Yeah. I think there are very few people actually get that until they've gone through something and think, okay, yeah, I'll just focus on me now.
Like we said earlier, you have to kind of go through that. You start the process, you want the money, you want the job title.
Yeah.
And then something happens, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Dale, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Really, really interesting to hear all about it and the story of your life and that career change. Let's finish with one piece of advice that we haven't already talked about, that we should have done, that you can give to someone who is in a similar situation, stuck in a job, not quite know what to do, where to go. What would you say to them?
I would say sit down and just map out a little bit. Firstly, where do you want to be? Forget 5 years, 10 years and all that stuff. Do you know what? So much changes within 5 years. You never know where you're going to be. But where do you see yourself? And then work backwards. How do you get to that point? Now, if it's, you know what business you want to do, let's just assume they want to go into business. They know what business they want to do. Now, start doing, what does your marketing look like? Do it, and I bet you it's not what you roll with. I've done it so many times where you do your marketing, you get your logo, you do posts, and you think, okay, that looks good. But you might need to tweak it a bit more and kind of refine down a little bit. But it's always work backwards. And if they're looking to change careers, I would kind of say, one, talk to a recruiter, if they can. Because what people forget about is they've got skills in their current jobs. They don't see how they can be transferred to another role. So it's just have a look. What skills do you actually have? A good way of looking at it as well, I guess, go on ChatGPT and put in, just as an idea, this is what my current role is. What skills do I have? Because a lot of the things that might come out as just ideas, you might not have thought about. And there's a lot of skills within there. And that might give you a clue of what direction you might want to go in.
Sounds like very good advice to me. I might try it for the next one. Dale, thank you very much. Appreciate you and appreciate your time.
No, that's great. Thank you very much.